Are you familiar with FBI Special Agents Kyle Seraphin?
I'm familiar with the name.
Is that yes?
I'm familiar with the name. Familiar with the name. Familiar with the name.
Let's bring in Kyle Seraphin. He's the FBI whistleblower who helped expose government censorship of our First Amendment rights.
Now, we only have this memo because a recently suspended FBI agent called Kyle Seraphin brought it to the public, and we're grateful that he did. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
He's the host of something that strangely is called the Kyle Seraphin Show.
Kyle Seraphin, I can't thank you enough for speaking out. I knew you guys were out there, and I knew it was just a matter of time, but you got a lot of guts putting your face and your name to this. You're doing a service on behalf of the American people, and from the bottom of my cracked and broken heart sometimes, thank you very much.
Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Monday. It is September the 16th, and we're rolling live right now on Rumble and on Locals and on Twitter X. All the places we need to be, all the places that you can find us live. And if you're listening to us, we really appreciate it, y'all. Thanks for being part of our program. You can see right there the live chat's been going on. And if you were part of the live chat, what you would know is that we had some interesting technical difficulties that started before the program went live. And I've been basically sitting here fighting with my computer, tooth and nail, to get the program off the ground. We're going to cover a lot of ground today about the second assassination attempt of Donald Trump, which actually just feels like another day in the news cycle, which I think is borderline insane. And it tells us a lot about what's going on in this particular election turn. It tells us how fallen we are as a nation at this moment and how wild everything looks, because we had a guy that tried to go round two, 65 days after the first assassination attempt where Donald Trump took a bullet to the ear. And there's nothing normal about this. It's incredible. And it's not even the only thing that's dominating the news. The fact is that most of the media, particularly the left-wing media, has moved on and has basically blamed Donald Trump for people wanting to kill him. This is hard to put into words. And you guys know I'm not one that has a difficulty with this. We're talking about blaming a man for the rhetoric that they've been putting out into the atmosphere of the United States for a decade. Truly incredible. Let me say thanks to folks that are sponsoring our program. I am actually really grateful that we have sponsors that allow us to do this sort of thing. Say what we want to say the way that I want to say it. We'll start off with My Patriot Supply. Folks, if you're not figuring it out right now, we're looking at a real difficult time, and everything could be taken away. Standing on a golf course. There's a reason why you want to be prepared. We keep the 4-week emergency food kit. We actually have several of them from My Patriot Supply at our house. It's everything that a family needs during a crisis when it comes to food. If you got to hunker down, you want over 2,000 calories per day. It's enough to go around in times of social unrest, government crackdowns, God forbid, an attack on the homeland or your family, or an assassination attempt on a political figure. The food lasts for up to 25 years whenever disaster strikes. We've seen this panic very recently during the COVID lockdowns. I'm not going to take my family's safety for granted. I don't recommend that you do it either. Right now, figure something out, and you guys can do it at preparelikekyle.com. You'll save $50 on the 4-week emergency food kit. Like I said, it's the one that we have. Preparelikekyle.com is the website. You guys just saw it up there. I'll throw it back again. $50. You'll get free shipping. It goes quickly. It shows up, and then the UPS truck blocks your driveway if it's like me, and then they unload a pallet full of this stuff. It's good to go, and you guys want to make sure that you have it stored away before something crazy happens. Get your 4-week emergency food kit at preparelikekyle.com. Again, that's preparelikekyle.com. Maybe we'll do 2 up front, because I think it's worth noting. My friends over at Catholic Vote are covering some of the other news cycles that are out there. If you guys are not subscribed to the Loop, you're missing out. Today's Loop led off with something about an ad warning about Harris going after trans procedures and backing them up. We've played some clips showing that she was interested in making sure that inmates have the opportunity to have this on our dime. If you guys want to get more information about faith, family, and freedom, you want to get good news that is unbiased and leans towards the conservative coverage end. It's an editorial bias towards things you care about. CatholicVote.org is where you go. Simply type in your email and your zip code and let them send you the Loop. It doesn't cost you a penny. It's not asking you for anything. You can also follow them at social media at Catholic vote. Of course, they do have the story about the potential gunman attempting and some other stuff, including an Arizona law protecting girls, like protecting kids, protecting babies, protecting families, kind of the things that we should all be interested in. How about we start off right away with the news of the day? I don't think that was an actual. I looked through Donald Trump's True Social posts, and I don't see the 0-2, which is to say what our thumbnail looks like. I'll throw it on the screen real quick. I don't think he actually posted that, so I don't know where that came from, but it's a clever little play on it. Assassins are 0-2 right now against Donald Trump in like 9 weeks. 9 weeks, multiple attempts. And as I said the first time that we had this after what happened on July the 13th in Butler, PA, it felt like a pane of glass was broken that was keeping some amount of darkness out. I used the analogy that one of my professors did when I was in college. He talked about genetics. He talked about cancer. And he talked about that we only have so many panes of glass and nobody knows how many panes of glass you have. That's keeping it back from you. It's inevitable over a long enough period of time that the glass panes will break. This is cancer. This is the way that our genetic code is written. It's the way we're created. Our country has a certain number of panes of glass, also unknown number, that are keeping back like a really, really evil darkness. And we keep breaking them. And a couple of them have been broken because of what happened and the attacks that have been taken on Donald Trump. There is one less barrier between incredible evil and us as a country. And when that kid up on the roof, he's 20, so we'll call him a kid. The other guy, a man, apparently 58 years old, this guy, Ryan Routh. When the kid took the shot in PA, what I heard was a gong, like a dinner bell for the crazies. I talked about this last night on Twitter. So I want to tell you that until proven otherwise, and yes, this guy may have some government connections and we'll show some interesting reasons why that would be. Like he's messing around in Ukraine. He's got government paperwork. He certainly had some compromising material on him going back like 20 years. Seems like kind of a weird dude. There's actually a video clip that I was able to get loaded up that shows his house in Hawaii. And apparently he's like a self-employed laborer that has a company that didn't launch. But he's driving a Porsche. At least that's what it looks like to me. He was in an Azov battalion recruiting video from what we can tell. It's hard to tell whether something is AI or not at this point. So I'll say there's a possibility that this guy had some government connections that most people would not have simply because of the weird life he chose. But what I saw is this dinner bell, somebody ringing that triangle like you see in all the old cowboy flicks and letting people know that Trump was on the menu. And this is 40 years worth of complacency. It's 40 years worth of bad decisions and hiring, certainly in the last 20 years or so. The people that are the senior executives within the FBI, within the DHS entities, including Secret Service, they have been elevating the least capable and they have been bringing these people on, and they have basically been relying on a reputation that has been unproven. The question has been asked, how do we know that these guys are not interrupting these kind of plots all the time? Number one, because you just heard about a plot and a guy getting interrupted, and that makes big news. The last time I remember someone going after presidents the way that they've gone after Donald Trump is essentially someone jumping the fences at the White House. And it makes very short stories because they don't actually want to dwell on it. You guys would be shocked to learn that there are FBI agents involved in shootings and they don't get covered regularly. And I don't know how that is. So when we talk about things like the Mockingbird media or the fact that the government sort of has a say on what does and doesn't play and what stories do and do not run, it seems pretty clear to me that I would not even hear about FBI agent shootings when I worked for the FBI. They wouldn't even share it internally to us. And they would quash all attempts. They would basically have some little statement that was almost nothing. And the media would go, man, we're just going to move on. And I don't know why you would do that. If the federal government is involved in shooting somebody in any kind of operation, you would think that they would want to say, hey, look, this is what we're doing. We're out here protecting you. We're doing the thing that you hoped we would do. Wouldn't you expect them to crow about their victories? And I'm certainly assuming that the Secret Service would do that too. It's like, look, you need to keep funding us. We've done such a great job. Look, we saved Donald Trump. We saved Obama. If we had an assassination attempt on Barack Obama 65 days ago, do you think that it would have disappeared from the news media coverage at all? Would it not be wall to wall every day, everything about this person and all the racism and all the dirty deeds that you have to atone for? Meanwhile, Donald Trump actually takes a bullet in the ear. And it's media silence, radio silence, didn't even get brought up in a debate. Not one time. Steve Friend and I were talking about it in our Suspendables chat in the background, and there was this little moment where one of them dropped a meme. I think it was Steve who dropped it, and it's the Austin Powers, the Dr. Evil, and the evil henchwoman, right? And he was like, the whistleblower just said that the ABC debate was rigged. Here's the thing. If you're talking about a debate being rigged, it means your person didn't perform that well. I didn't say it was fair. And it sounds like, from some of the paperwork out there, if we believe the affidavits that we're seeing, and I'm 50-50 on these things at best, but apparently someone from ABC said, look, Kamala Harris had required them to agree to fact-checking Donald Trump and not her, and that all the topics, maybe not the specific questions, were disclosed. And I always kind of assume that. It's like they don't need to tell her what the questions are. They just need to tell her what the answers should be that will play. And I think that's probably true. That's what we saw. Canned lines, not a very impressive performance. Nobody is voting for Kamala Harris based on what they saw in the debate. And they saw, a 3-on-1. But isn't it interesting that the same day that we're hearing about that, suddenly another guy decides he's going to snap. He's like, well, this is not working. We're going to go after Trump again. Another lunatic. And I do think this guy's kind of unhinged. I don't think that he's a normal person. That doesn't mean that he's a complete retard. What it means is that he's not right in the head at 58 because of the things that he spent his time doing. I got a video of him. This is supposedly him being interviewed by like a Ukrainian propaganda service. We might as well watch it. We'll talk about who this guy is. Then we'll talk about what his son had to say. It also kind of gives you a little bit of instinct into the father. Kind of like when you have a son who's a crackhead and is a tax evader and a fraud and does business like by running around the world and picking up bags of cash. Kind of tells you what kind of guy the father is too. Your children do reflect on you. That's why parents don't like their kids to misbehave in public. So we'll talk about that in a second. Let me play some of this. I don't know how much of it. I may talk over some of this video too, because it's pretty wild. And it's certainly just, if you're missing the visual of it, we're looking at a gaunt man in his 50s. I think he's 56 at that time. And he's not answering even the basic questions. Like, how many of you have ever led with your age versus your name? I've never done that. Maybe he's very uncomfortable, but it's really just, he's laser focused in on the camera, which takes a lot of training to do. He's not looking at the person that's asking him the questions. And you just listen to this voice. This is the would-be Trump assassin number 2, Ryan Routh, and he's in Ukraine answering questions about why he's there.
Please tell me who you are and why are you here?
I'm 56 from the U.S., from North Carolina originally, so live in Hawaii now, so flew all the way from Hawaii here. So the question as far as why I'm here, to me, a lot of the other conflicts are gray, but this conflict is definitely black and white. This is about good versus evil. This is a storybook, any movie we've ever watched, this is definitely evil against good. I mean, we're battling a situation here where, the Ukrainians and the rest of the world are caring and kind and generous and unselfish and take care of one another. And it's just a matter of, we need to stand up for that. That is the most important thing in the world, is just to show human beings that we're kind and we're caring and that we take care of one another and that the world is united so that we feed each other and make sure that, we all move forward as one collective whole unit.
How many of you imagine reaching 56 years old and speaking like that we're talking about a black and white conflict, that we're talking about something that is without any doubts? There's no way that you could question what's going on. It doesn't ring true. This is the kind of people that end up in sort of fanatical cult-like behavior. He's wearing an American flag t-shirt. He's got a blue spray paint through his hair, disheveled. It's a look, but it's kind of specific. This guy doesn't look like assassin mastermind to me. That's just my take. And he's going on, and he's basically spitting out full-on propaganda. You're telling me that Ukraine has, it's good versus evil in Ukraine? We're talking about some pretty sketchy stuff from those of us who are watching it. Whenever the government pushes a narrative really, really hard, It's the first thing that I question is like, well, what are the veracities of this statement? We're talking about one of the most corrupt countries in Eastern Europe. We're talking about a border concern for a major power that doesn't want NATO to expand. I don't know that it's black and white. I don't understand that it's good versus evil, especially when these people, like a lot of them, have relationships, as in they have family and blood that goes on either side of this border. This is a simpleton who's bought something and ends up looking like a lunatic. But it works really well for the mouthpiece. I'm sure that's a great recruiting video for people in Ukraine.
So, we feel the pain of one country's failure and their conflicts, and we enjoy the successes of other countries that are doing good, and we all work together. And for some reason, Russia does not grasp this concept that we're all one unit, and we have to get along and work together and be normal human beings. This is 2022. We have to work together. It seems asinine that we have a leader in a country that does not understand the concept of being unselfish and being generous and being kind, and just the basic moral values that are required by human beings these days.
I don't know what any of that means. None of that's reality. That's not something that, how do you reach 56 years old and end up that naive and that ridiculous and not understand? You've entered into a geopolitical conflict that apparently you don't understand. And you're going to go on and give this article, and this was apparently taken by Newsweek in addition to whoever the local people were. But all of this stuff is leftist garbage. All of this stuff is like, you're going to go to war with no experience in war, with no experience in violence, with no experience in the military. He was out trying to recruit money. There's all these different tweets and social media posts where he's trying to grab Jack Johnson and other people that have, large social media followings and famous like artists to get a aid for Ukraine fund via song. He wants the song to get people recruited. Apparently, he was also using his Facebook page in an attempt to try to get Afghan special operations people that left Afghanistan, and then maybe they would go fight in Ukraine for some reason as like mercenaries, I guess. Just a person that doesn't understand politics, that doesn't understand the world, doesn't understand human beings, from what I can tell. I don't know anybody who acts like that. How do you get to 50-something years old in the modern world and be like, we're all supposed to get along because that's how it's always been, and you got to get with the program? What program, man? Maybe that's because he lives in Hawaii, left North Carolina. Let me throw this on the screen, too, while we're talking about it. I may just leave that video because there's not much to it. His son apparently was reached out for contact by the Daily Mail, didn't know that his dad had been picked up, and said that his dad was not a violent person. There's a picture of him you're seeing on the screen right now. This is this Ryan Routh, who's in the patrol car. He's got kind of a blank stare. He's just kind of hanging out there. Doesn't look too particularly stressed for what happened. He just got shot at by the Secret Service. I'll tell you a little bit about that in a second. Not a violent person. Doesn't believe that his dad owns a firearm. It's the first I heard about it, he told the Daily Mail. He said that his father hates Trump, as every reasonable person does. That's a direct quote. Every reasonable person does. Adding, I don't like Trump either. Imagine getting a phone call from a news organization and finding out that your dad is in cuffs because he decided to set up a sniper nest on a golf course and went out to do like an attempted assassination on a man who could be the next president of the United States. And you're like, well, I mean, he hates Donald Trump, like doesn't everybody? And I mean, if he had to do that, he had to do that. This was the post. The post is actually pretty wild. Let's see if I've got it up here. They said he's not a violent person. He's a hard worker. He's a great dad. He's a great dude. He's a nice guy. And he's worked his whole effing life. He said he was at the beach. I thought he meant the Outer Banks in Hawaii. He's my dad, and he's had a couple traffic tickets as far as I know, but he's my dad, and I love my dad, and that's nothing like him. But every reasonable person does hate Trump, apparently. And then he said, I'm not saying that what he's done or what he's about, that's just my own rant of being fed up for my entire adult life. He's just fine with it. I don't know. If you told me that my dad went out and tried to kill someone that I don't like, I'd be like, what on earth happened? It doesn't make any sense. That's not the kind of man he is. It doesn't seem like a nice man would go out and buy an SKS variant with an ATI or a Tapco stock or whatever it is, the plastic furniture, and then set up. By the way, that is the wrong round for that distance. They used the rifle. Everyone kept referring to it as an AK-47, which apparently once you put the pictures up and you show people, which I think we've got a picture. Let me see the evidence pictures here. There you go. This is coming from a CVS story. So apparently he hung a couple of backpacks up. I don't know what the purpose of that was. Maybe they were full. They were supposedly full of ceramic tiles. I got that from somebody inside the bureau as well. That's accurate. They were full of ceramic tiles, not ceramic body armor. And you know what? If you put enough ceramic tiles into a backpack, like they will probably stop some return fire, particularly handgun fire. So I guess that's a thing. But the rifle that you're seeing leaned up against there was not an AK-47. It looks like an SKS variant. And if you follow people like my buddy Iraq veteran 8888 Eric showed some kind of breakdown and analysis. Luke Botkin over at T-Rex Arms did the same thing. He's like, I don't know why these liberals keep buying the wrong guns for what they're trying to do. And that's true. They do. This is not the weapon system to try to engage somebody at 500 yards or 300 yards. So let's get into the actual details of what happened. There you go. Here's this coming from, what is this? The very unbiased AP? Yeah, I think so. Essentially, this guy set up on the outskirts of Trump's international golf course in West Palm Beach and decided to try to take pot shots through the fence. Now, he made a couple of tactical errors. Apparently, he put the rifle barrel through the chain link fence that separates the outside and the inside, and he was basically shrouded and hidden by bushes. But the way that a security bubble works and the way that the Secret Service does their basic sort of, it's the same as surveillance. Surveillance and security are very similar because what are you doing? You're looking for things. So when you're doing surveillance, you're looking inward. You're trying to keep somebody inside the bubble. When you're doing personal protection, you're trying to keep people that are inside the bubble safe. So you're looking outside the bubble. But I used to do the same kind of thing. You'd always have somebody ahead. You'd always have someone behind, left and right, and you stay. And if you had somebody above, even better, which they don't apparently have for Donald Trump. So this guy apparently put his rifle through the chain link. And per my guys, or my folks that have been sort of sharing with me some thoughts, and I haven't heard this anywhere else, but it's very similar to what I heard in the press conference from the sheriff and from the FBI special agent in charge in Miami. He had his rifle through. It was spotted by the advanced agent who was like basically leapfrogging in front of Donald Trump. So Donald Trump was on one hole. This guy's in at least 1 to 2 holes in front, and they're scanning and they're looking for threats and problems, which means that they did their job. The Secret Service did what they were designed to do. Identify a threat. Now, here's where it gets interesting because I haven't heard anybody else report this. Apparently used a handgun to engage a human being that had what was obviously a rifle barrel and shot at them. And that's why you didn't have a fatality there. This wasn't the CAT team, the counter assault team, who are the guys you saw that popped up on the stage at Butler that have the rifles and the night vision and the helmets and the body armor like that. This was not a counter assault. This was just a regular plainclothes agent that was looking ahead, saw this, drew a handgun and engaged the subject who fled and left the rifle and the tiles, got into a vehicle, and then was picked up in Martin County, which is the next county over. So that's apparently the story. I haven't heard anyone else say that it was someone engaging with a handgun. This was the kind of sources on the inside kind of sharing that information with me. And it makes a lot of sense because you go, okay, fine. Yeah, handgun. That's why you didn't have someone killed. The other thing is when you're shooting through a chain link fence, anybody who's ever done it, I don't know why, but there's a high probability of hitting the chain links. It just happens. Even though it only fills up less than 10% of the physical area of the fence, your rounds always tend to get hit. Now, whether there were shots like, I want to say Daily Mail reported that there were shots being fired in. By the way, we also heard all kinds of misdirection right away. We heard the initial story. Then we heard news media coverage saying this was not related to Donald Trump. This was just a couple of people getting into a firearms conflict, a gunfight outside of it, and Donald Trump just happened to be there. And then they went back on the original story and like, no, this guy wasn't apparently a loony. I've got this as well. This was posted by my friend Sean Witzman, so a little hat tip to him for calling my attention to it. Time Magazine says this: the suspect was arrested in relation to the shooting at Trump's golf course in Florida on Sunday. He's been identified as Ryan Routh, 58 years old, with an unclear political ideology, criminal record, and a history of so on. And of course, got community noted because they put this out on Twitter saying he had a Harris-Biden or a Biden-Harris bumper sticker on his car and called Donald Trump a threat to democracy in the same way you heard that sort of lunatic, goofy spiel about what he thought was going on in Ukraine. There's also an awful lot of video footage of this guy. Now, this is not the perfect kind of patsy. This is not the perfect kind of person to set up. This sounds like someone who's ideologically driven, and I don't know that they're the dream of the CIA, which everyone kind of wants to go, oh, were these government agencies involved? Look, here's some reasons why people think that. This is stuff from his timeline. Those are documents from the Ukrainian government. a Ministry of Defense translation saying that he basically had written consent and was trying to join their military. That's pretty weird. That's a weird thing to do. It's also a pretty high profile to add when you've been popping up on weird little local news organizations covering you. Apparently he lived in Hawaii and lived through a flood. I don't know. This guy doesn't seem like the perfect setup unless they're just testing the security of how good the Secret Service is. And they performed better than they did last time, so I guess kudos to that. Here he is talking to some lady at a weather station, a weather channel. And he's sitting in a kayak. If you can't see this, if you're not watching the video, he's sitting in a kayak and paddling nowhere. It's really, really strange looking. Just anyway, you guys watch this and we'll keep going after that.
The folks living here just finished raising this house about a month ago, and it's a good thing because chances are what you see in the yard here would have likely inundated the house. Just off Kamehameha Highway in Ka'aava, this is what Ryan Ruth's front yard looks like one day after powerful thunderstorms rocked Oahu's windward coast.
And we had building materials under the house, so all the lumber under the house started floating out into the yards.
The new homeowner moved in about a year ago and was fortunate to finish one of his improvement projects just in the nick of time.
We recently just jacked the house up 2 or 3 feet. The surveyor's still not done with the certificate.
All right, and so then I found another little video. The AP went out and interviewed a neighbor who was standing nearby. The guy was standing at parade rest, looked kind of like he had a military background, the neighbor did. And he said that he was a super nice guy, and he's out of town for work a lot, which sounds like military as well, and that this guy, Ryan, is like helpful and nice to his wife. Of course, you guys saw him sitting in that weird little outrigger canoe, which is really bizarre because it was shown 3 different times. He obviously really wanted to show people his canoe project. The thing that I was honing in on was the fact that he's sitting there and for a guy who's out of work and living in kind of like a mediocre house, he also has a Porsche convertible. Like there's a Porsche sitting in the driveway there. None of this stuff really checks out or makes a lot of sense to me. It's just a strange critter. Anyhow, let's keep pushing through some of the other kind of slides on here. Again, we had the pictures from the outside. We have these this backpack. These are not people who are like what I would call like an organized criminal. And so we would love to see information about it, right? This is the thing that we would all like. We would all love to know more. Like, who is this dude? He's got some strange connections overseas. Way more weird than like encrypted chats. He's actually been to Ukraine and been trying to recruit money for like a fighting effort. Okay? So are we going to get to the bottom of it? We might. It turns out. We might. And the reason why is this. This is Governor Ron DeSantis yesterday. The state of Florida will be conducting its own investigation regarding an attempted assassination at the Trump International Golf Course. The people deserve the truth about the would-be assassin and how he was able to get within 500 yards of the former president and the current GOP nominee. Governor DeSantis put that out at 7:30. I don't know if that's Eastern or my time, but put it out yesterday in the evening. And this is what the suspendables have been recommending. We need an independent investigation. I would have loved it if the PA State Police did that as well. This is the right announcement that Florida is going to be doing their own parallel investigation at the same time. And I'm going to tell you why. And it always comes back to, I don't know why the suspendables are in this place and time for these reasons, but let me just say, we're here and we're talking about things that keep coming back up. And we have this connection to them. I'm going to share that in 1 second. Before we do, Patriot Coolers, my friends over at a real good American company that loves this country, that doesn't want to go and fight for Ukraine. This is my tumbler sitting here on the desk with the rifle, the last line Substack logo, letting us know the pen is mightier than the sword right up until the sword is necessary. And an upside down flag, letting us know that our country is like a banana republic right now. We have our federal agencies underwater. If you guys want to get your own, you can go to patriotcoolers.com. You can get it etched. You can get it screen printed. Use promo code Kyle, K-Y-L-E, to save 10% on any of their great products. It's Patriot Coolers with an S, patriotcoolers.com. Again, that promo code is just my name. You can find it in the show description, wherever you're listening. If you're listening or if you're watching, you guys can just scroll down and check them out. They've got a really good product. I mean, it stands on its own. Nobody ever gets them and goes like, oh, I think you've led me astray. As good as anybody else is out there. I'm right about to upgrade my kids on it too. So if you guys want to have something, whether it be a custom or one of the things they normally make, patriotcoolers.com. Again, the promo code KYLE. How about this? You ready? This is coming from the Washington Times. This is a little bit of old news. It's going back in the archives a bit. FBI agent had to erase public vitriol about Donald Trump and Mar-a-Lago. in the field office's jurisdiction. So that is a goofy and stilted headline from the Washington Times, reporting by Carrie Pickett. What is it talking about? It's talking about a guy named Jeffrey Veltri. And Jeffrey Veltri is the special agent in charge of the FBI's Miami field office. He's the top agent there. He spoke at the press conference that I saw the other day. And you know what's really interesting about that? He hated Trump. And we had whistleblowers come forward, cited by Empower Oversight, represented a whistleblower within the FBI security division, which Veltri used to be the deputy assistant director of. He was the number one guy at the security division. He rolled up and worked for Jennifer Moore, the person that signed the notices that got rid of all the suspendables, the actual suspender of the suspendables. And Jeffrey Veltri was working directly underneath Jennifer Moore. And he was told that he could promote to the special agent in charge of Miami. That's a big post, by the way, for the FBI. There are basically 4 big leapfrog special agent in charge positions. One's in, you get bumped up to the AD, what they call the assistant director position, at Washington Field in New York and Los Angeles. Those are the 3 biggest. And the last biggest, but non-AD post is Miami. And they've had some pretty garbage SACs in the past. Obviously, they let the Mar-a-Lago raid go down. Did they not? They added some tactical support to it. But this guy was allowed to go and take over that field office as long as he got rid of his social media posts that were hating on Trump. That seems very, very problematic, especially when you're putting him in charge of the area where they're doing the investigation into Donald Trump. Are they not? They're part of the special counsel investigation. Part of it's coming out of Washington field office, and the physical lead follow-ups and the jurisdiction, or the what we call the area of responsibility, is within Miami's field office. Why would you put a Trump hater there if you're trying to show impartiality? If you asked me, I would say that the FBI should recuse itself from this investigation. They spent too much time at too many official levels going after Donald Trump. They are currently trying to put Donald Trump in prison for the rest of his life. How are they going to do a fair investigation at Butler, which we're already seeing that we don't get any of that information? And how in the world are they going to do the same thing now on number 2, 65 days after the first one? Thankfully, DeSantis has decided that they're going to get involved. I think it's a big deal. I want to go and cover another little thing that shows me this anti-Trump bias is pervasive, and it's pervasive under this guy, Jeffrey Veltri, the special agent in charge in Miami. Again, he spoke at the press conference. He's the guy that should be responsible and probably should have never promoted again because of this. This is a questionnaire coming from the FBI Security Division. It was published by Empower Oversight. It's out on social media. You guys can find it. It was covered before. It was covered by me on this program, but I'm going to touch it again. This is the Security, Integrity, and Investigation section, the Clearance Investigation Unit, the unit that suspended my clearance, Garrett O'Boyle's clearance, a bunch of others, Steve Friends, and so on. And what they have is this little fake form that they created. It was apparently by a contractor, always the plausible deniability of a contractor. And what you can see on there is that you should answer the questions fully and truthfully, and actions against your security clearance may be undertaken based on what's going on. Number 2, they asked about vocal support for Donald Trump. Has your client now or ever voiced support for Donald Trump? Doesn't that sound like a McCarthy type situation? Doesn't this sound like we're doing a political test? I don't know that anyone knew who I voted for when I worked at the FBI. They might have guessed because I love guns. They might have been able to guess sort of the way that I comported myself. The fact that I went to a church, maybe that was a heads up, but it's not an obvious answer. The FBI started looking for proxies to get rid of people that were conservative, and got rid of proxies of people that were interested in doing actual work on election fraud. They said, oh, you have 7 kids? This is a real story, by the way. Oh, you have 7 kids? That means you're probably religious. And if you're religious, you're probably conservative. And if you're conservative, you're probably a Donald Trump supporter. You can't be on this task force. It's the same mentality that Timothy Tebow had in Washington Field, is the same thing that is now running the Miami field office. This is the disclosure. The client for Empower Oversight is a supervisory special agent, a GS-14. So for reference, the frontline agents, when you first start off, you're a GS-10 up to a GS-13. And a GS-13, which is what I was when I left, is a full tenured FBI employee. Steve Friend, the same story. Garrett was on his way up there. A GS-14 is usually a supervisor, except at headquarters. They're kind of the frontline agents doing the actual work. And this SSA client, this GS-14 client, disclosed that he had concerns about the thing you just saw to a unit chief. That's going to be his supervisor. And eventually found that a large number of the security division employees, what we call SecD employees, had concerns about the operations, that they knew what was going on was illicit, that this was a biased and politically motivated witch hunt within the security division to get rid of conservatives. Again, we're talking about, who is it? DAD, that's Deputy Assistant Director Jeffrey Veltri, listed right here in this complaint. And acting section chief, Dana Perkins. I worked at the academy with Dana Perkins. She was one of the instructors for my course. I know her relatively well. I know that she bakes. I knew things about her family. I didn't know that she was a lunatic leftist and that she was going to end up trying to hunt me down. This attitude should not be promoted in a unbiased law enforcement agency. And when you have this kind of bias and it's been exposed very, very clearly, how on earth are you going to continue doing investigations into the guy that got, that had an assassination attempt against him? I'm baffled. This was brought up in congressional testimony, folks. This is not just Kyle Seraphin saying it or Empower Oversight saying it. And then Chris Wray does the same thing he always does. I'm appalled. I had no idea. This person wasn't it. You want to hear him in his own words? Let's go with this.
I didn't hear it. Is support for President Trump a security concern amongst your employees?
No.
Is objection to the COVID-19 vaccine a security threat?
Not from my perspective.
Who improved what is termed the Trump questionnaire within the FBI that was done by SIIS? Dina Perkins, Jeffrey Veltri were behind it. Who was responsible for that? And did you know that there was a Trump questionnaire out there?
So the document you're asking about is an interview outline that we only recently learned about, and in my view is completely inappropriate. I asked my team to get to the bottom of what happened and to ensure that doesn't happen again, and I've learned that it's not an FBI form, that its use was isolated, that it was created not by an FBI employee, but by an outside contractor, and that individual is no longer affiliated with the FBI. But we are sending what we have found to the Office of Inspector General, and we'll cooperate, of course, with anything they find.
Mr. Chairman, I'll just close with this. We keep hearing about these isolated examples, whether it's Richmond Catholics, this instance. When isn't it a pattern? I yield back.
Gentleman goes back up.
Yeah, it's a pattern. And so are Chris Wray's answers. Tom Tiffany there talking about it, the representative. He's getting right to the meat of this. He brought it up. Is this a problem? And Chris Wray denies it. That's what Chris Wray does. Do you think Chris Wray is running this op? Absolutely not. I have no belief that Chris Wray runs the FBI because I've listened to his own words. And he says that he has oversight of the FBI. And I'm sure he does. And he finds out about the stuff afterwards, like every good, plausibly deniable manager. Do you know who does know about it? The deputy director, who's a leftist, whose name is Paula Bate, who I've had probably a dozen people from inside the bureau in various different locations reach out and say, hey, did you know that he knocked up one of the support employees? That he got this this young female pregnant? It's like, what does that do for us? It tells you about the moral attitude of these people. It tells you the sort of ethics that they work under. And it tells you that they think they are totally immune and isolated they are completely insulated from any consequences. Will that contractor who did that thing be blackballed from any federal job again, the way that Steve Friend and Garrett O'Boyle and Marcus Allen and I are? No, absolutely not. And there are others whose names you don't know who have also gone to Empower Oversight. In fact, the people who brought this questionnaire, who I know personally, this is a real thing. They wanted to know about COVID vaccines. They wanted to know about Donald Trump. They wanted to know about their feelings about January 6th. What they are doing is a loyalty test for federal law enforcement, and it is out of bounds. But we are so far gone that it is normal to have a second assassination attempt on a potentially next president of the United States. And it doesn't even have people setting their hair on fire and looting. When I keep talking to you guys about the fact that this looks like there's no chance they're going to give this up, I don't need to get into the speculation of where the guy came from or who motivated him or any of the kind of conspiracy theories right now. Let's give it a breather. Let's find out what comes out. And thankfully, like I said, Ron DeSantis and the FDLE is going to go out there and do, hopefully the Florida Department of Law Enforcement will actually go out there and do like a legit state investigation. I've heard mixed bags about their capabilities. It's better than nothing. It's better than what we're going to get from the FBI. I'll tell you that much. So let's take a pause on who this guy was, because it doesn't matter at the moment. What matters is the environment that it's happening in. That we have news media that can't help themselves but try to attack one message, and they will completely ignore the biggest story. Imagine, like I said, imagine Barack Obama experiencing this and them talking about it for a couple days and then quitting. And that's maybe why we ended up with this scenario. This is Dana Bash on CNN talking to JD Vance. And she's attacking him about the story about whether cats and dogs were being eaten, whether, ducks in the park are being snatched by Haitian immigrants. She's debating with the person that she's asking questions of. They have no faith in their audience's ability to discern truth and fact. What they do is they try to spoon feed it. And we keep seeing it right now in real time. And they spoon feed the things they want. And they say, listen, how dishonest this guy is. If I have another clip from Morning Joe where they're talking about how that story led to bomb threats. Really? Maybe it did. Maybe there's a bunch of unhinged people on the right. I'm sure there are unhinged people on both sides of the political aisle. Kind of like this guy, Ryan Routh. He doesn't seem to represent like a normal person, but he's a hell of a lot more normal and more mainstream, because when you go out there and look on the social media sites, what are they saying? Third time's a charm. That was trending yesterday. The worst people. Do you know how nuts you have to be to think that assassinating a potential future leader is the good course for America? If you're on the political right and you're cheering for the assassination of anybody on the left, you have lost it. You have lost the thread. You have lost the value of life, which is where I'm going to end the show today. But let me start with this. Here's Dana Bash trying to do the debate. We're going to walk forward to the lunacy of trying to blame Donald Trump for his own assassinations, and for the whole idea that Springfield, it's the fault, like what's happening in Springfield is the fault of people talking about it. And then we'll end with this sort of idea that there's been a cheapening of life. And I think that's it. John Paul II said it, the culture of death. We are experiencing what that looks like in a way that I could have never fathomed. All right, here's Dana Bash.
Dana, would you like to ask me questions and then let me answer them, or would you like to debate me on these topics? I noticed that when you had Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, you gave them multiple choice answers to the questions that you asked, and you allowed them to answer the questions. I'm happy to be here to talk about policy, but if you're going to interrupt me every single time that I open my mouth, then why am I even doing this? So please ask a question, and I'd ask you to be polite enough to let me answer it.
Yes.
Yes. That's what I did, because that's what she's told to do. If you want to hear another version of this, go check out Seb Gorka. He's in my timeline right now on Twitter. And his statement is essentially on Sky News. And they go, hey, what's your opinion? And Seb says exactly what Seb would normally say. And he has no punches pulled. And then they go, oh, my God, we're cutting away. And he said, if you don't want me on your program saying what my opinion is, then don't have me on your program. And they're like, okay, we're cutting away. Goodbye. Yep. They cannot handle any disruption to the narrative pipeline. And the narrative pipeline is that illusory truth where we're going to repeat things that are lies as many times as possible until people believe them and they don't question it. This is Al Sharpton doing the same thing. A guy who's made a complete career out of saying this crazy stuff. They can't have any disruption. There can be no glitches in the solidarity of the messaging. Because once people start thinking, they go, there's an awful lot of holes in this. I have some cognitive dissonance. I might start asking more questions and start looking things up on my own. I hate the term do your own research, but it's not really hard to go out there and figure out like that the economy doesn't look good, that the numbers do not support what they think. I got something I'll tell you in a second. Numbers wise, it's like the most damning thing you can imagine. You can't make a case for anybody that's been part of this last administration. So you can't disrupt the script. You have to stay on topic. Here they are staying on script. Again, Al Sharpton, what a great messenger.
They have literally had to close the schools and cancel town hall meetings because of these threats. And when you look at the fact that he is now admitting they made up a story, as you say, quoting him, that the media wouldn't cover. Maybe the media didn't cover it because there was no story. It didn't exist. But again, this is consistent with Trump's campaign. Let's not forget Donald Trump, as president, called Haiti and several African countries S-hole countries. You also have to put into the factor in that if you are someone that is anti-Haitians in Springfield, or coming in to think you're defending the people of Springfield whose pets are being eaten up, any black walking around Springfield looks Haitian. I mean,
do you know how we know this is complete BS? Number one, for a campaign, and I just say MSNBC is part of the campaign that supposedly is looking forward. They spend an awful lot of time looking backward at things that Donald Trump has said years and years and years ago. And the second thing is, we covered it here, right? Who did the DOJ convict of hate crimes against Haitians? Were they white people? Were they MAGA hat wearing jerks? No. It was a black guy. It was a young black person. You think that people that are from this country can't spot what a Haitian looks like? That doesn't come from here and has to speak in Haitian Creole and calls 911 and can't speak English? That person? Do you think that we have any difficulty with that? Whether you look like me, whether you look like some of my friends who have darker skin, it's irrelevant. We know what Americans look like. They look like Americans. And the people that are most pissed off in Springfield, from what we can tell, that actually got involved in quote unquote hate crimes, which I hate, are black. It makes people who have darker skin look bad. If you're looking around and you're like, I'm not with them. Those are freaking crazy Haitians doing whatever it is they do. I'm just trying to survive here in America in a very difficult time. It's pretty obvious. I want to touch on some numbers, and then I want to go back to the culture of death before we're done here, because I do think a lot of this stuff, I think the reason that we are so tolerant mentally, that we've just been so inundated with the idea that it's okay that somebody might do this. People on the political left in particular. I don't think people on the right are okay with it, but man, we are numb to it. And for some reason, for me, it comes back to something that is becoming more and more and more prevalent, and it's on the sheet of paper that I have that says what the number one campaign ad is for the Democrats, and it's abortion access. That's what they're most interested in. And I think it comes back to that. Because if you're willing to kill babies, the most vulnerable people in the world, human life is cheap. And you don't get too upset about the fact that someone's taken 2 pot shots or attempted to kill someone who's going to be president. That's my take on that. Let me give you some numbers here because this is interesting. This one is coming from CNN. Average base pay raises at larger corporations is projected to be just under 4% in the next year. And that's not the most crazy thing, I guess. For me, the first 2 paragraphs say a lot of this. Most large U.S. corporations are projecting an average increase in their base budget pay of 3.9% for next year. So 2025, they're anticipating slightly less than a 4% raise for people. That's what they're going to pay. And that's lower than the average that they paid out in 2023. So last year, the average was 4.4% increase in base salaries. And this year, it's only been 3.8%. But we've been hearing over and over again that this is basically the low level of the monthly inflation that has been going on in this country of our dollar. So that is a theft from us. The value of our dollar has gone down by the amount that people are gaining in a year. We've been losing that in a month. So people are basically gaining 1/12 of the ground back at the minimum. And there are months that have had 9% inflation under the Biden administration. So why is Kamala Harris out there campaigning on the economy and the economy of opportunities and acting like there's some sort of corporate, gouging that's going on? Corporations can only do what they can do. They also lose value in their money. They're probably taking a hit by raising salaries, trying to adjust. And people have scaled back their buying. All of this stuff is truly damning. It's full crazy. 4% raises against 4% per month inflation. That's why people are in such a rough spot. And to me, that's really, really obvious. I meant to play these last week, and they've been kind of sitting on my palette trying to figure out what it is. I didn't know when they were going to fit in, so I want to fit them in right now. These are 2 phone calls that I found on social media. They're coming from Students for Life, which is a group that goes out there and tries to talk on college campuses. And they find themselves debating mostly professors, mostly these like really sad, nasty, childless cat ladies that you hear J.D. Vance talking about. So there it is. This is Kristen Hawkins doing a real-time debunk of talking points for the political left. And when you believe that killing a baby that could survive outside of the womb, that have survived outside of the womb, that many of you, like I'm pretty confident my wife was born prematurely enough to fit into the category of what they're talking about in this video clip. When you devalue babies, then maybe you don't care about adults being killed off either. Maybe you don't know anything about the value of human life. Maybe you're really excited about the Ukrainian war, even though there are literally hundreds of thousands of men losing their lives on both sides. Because you don't get it. Like I said, John Paul II called it the culture of death, and it's really taken hold. I remember hearing about it when I was a kid. Before I was even a teenager, this was some talking points that were coming out to us. The culture of death, and abortion was a huge, huge foundational piece of it. And eventually that takes root and it grows in the psyche of the people that believe it's okay, and they think much less of life in general. So here's these debunks. I think these are really powerful. You should be aware of them.
We're going to call the abortion facility and I'm going to tell them I'm pregnant with a 32-week fetus, as you say. Hi, I just turned 32 weeks pregnant. Am I able to come in for an abortion ASAP?
I wouldn't be able to see you for the week of the 23rd, so that would put you at 34 weeks.
Can I still have an abortion at 34 weeks?
Yes, ma'am. I just have to do an intake form. Do you have about 5 minutes?
Sure, I have 5 minutes. Yeah, I just found out that she could have Down syndrome. I can still have the abortion right, even though she has Down syndrome?
Yeah, so we just have to do an intake because the doctor...
It doesn't fucking matter.
That's late-term abortion, ma'am.
That's exactly it. When you start hearing the talking points that came out from the ABC, the fact checks that, oh, nobody's doing late-term abortions that late, you just heard a woman say, yeah, we'll do the intake. By the way, we can't take you today for 32 weeks. We have to wait till 34 weeks. The amount of development that happens in those 2 weeks is also very substantial. They don't care. They don't care about life. So why would they care about Donald Trump's life? They don't even care about innocent babies. There's another one of these. This one's a little bit more emotionally involved. And then I'm going to play you kind of what I think is... It's a piece of a sermon by a not Catholic who seems to get it really, really well. Not that Catholics are the only ones who get it, but I just like it when someone cites Catholic theologians and is not coming out of the Catholic tradition, because there's a lot of really important thought that's happening. And it seems like all the people that are on the same page, they all agree on the same values. It's what we call conservatism. This testimony is a little bit more emotional.
Right, calling the Care Clinic in Bethesda, Maryland.
Thank you for calling Care. How can I help you?
I am looking to have an abortion.
How far along are you?
I'm 34 right now. I am in a pretty desperate situation. My boyfriend is kind of out of the picture now, so I don't really have any support.
An abortion at any stage is actually much safer than delivering a term pregnancy. It's a 4 to 5 day procedure. We do some basic lab work on you and start to dilate your cervix. After that, we do what we call the fetal injection. A needle is inserted through the abdomen and into the fetal heart, where lidocaine is injected, and that will completely numb the fetus so there's no pain. And then after that, we inject a medication called digoxin and another medication called KCL into the fetal heart, which will slow and then stop the fetal heartbeat. And then on that 4th day, depending on how your cervix is dilated, we'll break your water, and then we'll give you a medication called misoprostol. Misoprostol will sort of induce contraction and increase the dilation of your cervix. You're going to have contractions and cramping, and then we'll assist you in sort of pushing in the induction and then remove all of the products of conception. You're definitely going to feel discomfort and cramping and a lot of pressure, but we do give you fentanyl and Versed during the procedure. We specialize in later trimester care. Our doctor is very well versed in what he's doing, and he's very good.
So I'm not like a rare situation. Y'all help women this late in pregnancy all the time?
All the time.
Right? Isn't that it? How gross is that? It's actually safer for us to kill your baby than for you to deliver your baby. That was a statement made by a woman on an intake phone at an abortion clinic. Late term. Like, it looks like a baby. Could survive if delivered. And she said, we're going to put lidocaine in and it doesn't hurt. That way we're going to numb it up. Yeah, lidocaine is a numbing agent. You guys ever had your an injection to have your teeth worked on with lidocaine or Novocaine? You know what you feel? That really sharp, aggressive pinch. And then they put in a bunch of cardiac medications that are meant to treat arrhythmias, but all they do is they just shock and stop the heart. They immobilize the heart, so the baby just suffocates. That's what moves blood in the fetal circulatory system. They don't have lungs. They're relying on the mother's circulatory system, pulmonary system. So they just stop getting oxygen. And then they get rid of the products of conception. That's called a baby. That baby, the product of conception, at 8 months, they're removing body parts. You saw this girl was horrified by this. This video has been sitting on my chart for a little while as well. I will give you guys a palate cleanse, I promise you. I know we're leaving it on heavy, but this is a heavy day. And this is, I think, if you're okay with killing babies, then you're okay with killing a grown man in his late 70s who wants to run for president. Whether you disagree with the man or not, you've moved the needle so far by being okay with killing the most innocent that, somebody who you call Orange Hitler or you think is going to be a dictator, like that's a no-brainer. Wipe them off the map. That's the mentality that I think has been developed on the political left. And it is a battle of good and evil. There's no question about it in my mind. It's spiritual. When I say it, people know. When you say it and people look uncomfortable, I know they're on the left. They're uncomfortable of talking about evil because they're doing it. And it makes it really, really hard to own the evil that you've accepted. Here's a little discussion about that.
Satan would kill God if he could, but he can't. So he kills babies because he knows it wounds the heart of the Father and causes chaos on the earth. You see, abortion is actually the sacrament of Satan. Because abortion says you must die so I can live. But Christ says, no, I must die so you can live. And chooses to enter human history in a uterus of all locations to redeem mankind from their sins. This is why Peter Kraft, the Catholic philosopher who's still alive today, spoke more prophetically on the issue of abortion than any Protestant I've ever heard. And he said, don't you know, church, abortion is the demonic parody of the Eucharist. That's why it uses the same holy words. This is my body, but with the opposite blasphemous meaning.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a coincidence that the central phrase of the entire abortion industrial complex and the culture of death today are the same words of our Savior at the First Communion, this is my body? And because Planned Parenthood is not only the largest abortion provider in the world, they're the largest provider of transgender drugs. They call both of those mutilations health care. Did you know this? What do they call transgender surgeries? Gender affirming. What do they call abortion? Reproductive. Right. They call them both health care. And so if they can't get the babies in the womb, they'll get them outside the womb. They defend both practices using bodily autonomy arguments. This is my body.
Yep.
And if I want to kill what's inside of my body, then who cares? Because the serpent told me in Genesis 3, ye shall be as gods. Abortion is the sacrament of the religion of secular progressivism. So when Christ...
You see? It all comes back to it, doesn't it? It all comes back to the same thing. When I talk about progressivism being a secular religion, I'm not the only one seeing this, and I didn't ever see this before. This is something that a lot of people have independently been able to see. It's religious fervor, and it's evil. And that's why you shrug off the idea that somebody would take a shot at a political candidate. Like that would be the preferred way, that violence is acceptable. People who have never done any real violence in their life, certainly not against a fighting target, people who have not trained to go up 1-on-1 or even being outmatched, the way our special operations guys go, where they're going in against the odds and still triumph. No, we're talking about people that want to gang up the way that we saw happening in Portland. We want to see mob mentality, and they want to attack the innocent and the most helpless. So why wouldn't they want to try to shoot a guy who's out on a golf course for some words that he said and his vision for the country, which is slightly different than what they think? Pretty obvious. All right. I know that's heavy. I'm aware of it. Here, let me throw this out there. If you guys want to defend yourselves and you want to get some support a good company, Shield Arms is a good one, and you guys can do that. They are a pro-life group. I guarantee you that, because they're Christians and they have a Christian shield as their icon. You can find the link in the description, shieldarms.com. Use promo code Kyle, will save you 5% site-wide, including on their firearms, which are outstanding. Their accessories for Glock handguns are outstanding as well. I'm not going to belabor the point, but if you guys want to do it, go scroll down, check out Shield Arms, promo code KYLE. I've got something kind of fun so we can laugh about this. Some of us all have a sick sense of humor, in addition to this very serious moment that we have. I found this. This was entitled, Whose Grandpa Is This? I think we all know people like this. I get a kick out of people saying the quiet part out loud, and I think that this guy probably is serious. I think he actually does this thing. because human nature is responsive. What should happen, because what we heard happen in that press conference is the next time Donald Trump goes on a golf course, there's going to be a much bigger security element, which means golfing with Donald Trump from here on out probably is going to be very safe. In the same way his rallies should have a very aggressive security posture. Why they had to wait for a second attack, I don't know. But I hope to God that they looked at it and said, aha, we blew it. Let's correct ourselves. This guy is talking about the sort of dark nature of humans' responses when things bad happen. And he uses it to get really good travel trips out of it, I guess. We'll get you a little bit of laugh on this. This reminds me of a George Hill type attitude. This guy probably also served in the military based on what he says.
For fun. I mean, it sounds kind of macabre, but I like to go to visit a country after a terrorist attack. Okay. After a terrorist attack, you know, the horse has already left the barn. It's cheap. I was in Istanbul after they had that bombing at the airport. So I went there. Jesus Christ. And there was a bus for supposedly 50 people. How many people do you think were on the bus? 2. 1. You. So I got the whole tour. And they're like, why are you here? The whole bus. And I stayed at a $300 a night hotel for $30.
Oh my gosh.
I was in Morocco after they chopped off two girls' heads off. and I was on this trail, on the same trail that they were on.
So wait, when you read the news of a terrorist attack, you're like, time to hit orbit.
But you get really good deals, and the security is fantastic.
The security is fantastic. Anyway, a little bit of dark humor that I have. I appreciate that somebody out there recognized an opportunity for travel in misfortune in the world. I don't think that anybody could say that he was asking for it, but acknowledging the reality that people do respond. I hope the response for Donald Trump's protective detail is a much higher level of capability, a much larger package. And the fact that they brought it up in the news conference the other day, that he's not the president, he's a former president, and he's just a politician who's like running for office. They better take that stuff seriously. We cannot have political assassinations that are successful in 2024, especially after 2 failed attempts. You've been given all the mulligans. I hope that the Secret Service gets their acting gear. Terrifying stuff. And anyway, we will continue this week as it goes on. We'll cover the things that pop up. I hope all of you guys are out there insulating things at the local level, your own local level, at your home, your family. Shore up those weaknesses. Make sure you're going out and meeting your neighbors in your neighborhood. Getting your local government, which is not related to the federal government. Make sure that they know that you are a citizen and not a subject. So get them on board. This is where your action should be. Yes, plan on voting for the national election, but also row for the shore like it's not going to happen, and make sure you're hedging those weaknesses in your own community. Figure out what it needs to be done. Figure out what connections you need to make for those around you. We always say this, like, we're going to have to save ourselves here. If you haven't realized it, it might be time Donald Trump has private security too. Why? Because you got to save yourself. Because it turns out the federal government is a pretty awful tool. All right. I'll see you guys again tomorrow. Thanks so much for joining us for the live program. Again, for all of you that are in the chat, who are out there watching us, let's throw this up real quick. I do appreciate all of the chatter going back and forth between the folks on X, the folks on YouTube, and our Rumble chat as usual. And if you guys want to support the program directly, you can do so at KyleSerafin.com. Again, KyleSerafin.com. That's our locals community. You can join as a paid subscriber. You can join as a free subscriber. You get access to some stuff on both. But if you want all of it, it's a paid subscriber on the annual membership. It is the best deal. And we're having fun. We're going to have a call-in show on Thursday again, where we'll actually have the technology hopefully working. All right. Thanks for seeing this one through. Thanks for hanging with us through the tech difficulties. God bless all of you. I'll see you again tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.